Hello and welcome to the start of Season 2 of the John Bonjour Halloween Horror Club, a show where every Friday I review horror movies leading up to Halloween to get into the spirit, to get into the vibe. I am, of course, John Bonjour, and this is, of course, my Halloween Horror Club. This week we are discussing a movie that is very near and dear to me, The Stuff, directed by Larry Cohen. Before we jump right into the review of the movie, I do have something a little fun to share with you guys. So if you want to hop over to the bar, I've been working something up. For each of these Halloween Horror Club videos, I'm going to be making a craft special cocktail unique to each film. I have tried none of these, so it might go great, it might go terrible. I also tried to record some of this already, and it didn't work. It didn't work, but we're here, we're ready, we've got the jacket on so you know it's the real deal, and we are going to be making a cocktail for The Stuff that I will be aptly calling The Stuff. You gotta get something sweet, sugary sweet, because that's the whole point of The Stuff in the movie, is that it is extremely sweet. Everybody cannot stop eating it. It's addictive, so I'm thinking cream has to be involved in some capacity, but I am dairy-free because of my tum-tum and all the hurt that it does to me. So, I'm gonna be doing something that is creamy in texture, but has a different flavor, so we're going for like a berries and cream summer kind of vibe. Here's what we've already got that I didn't get the footage for. I have some blackberries here that I have muddled with this, a rhubarb liqueur that I made using cut up rhubarb, macerated in sugar overnight, and then put in vodka for a couple of weeks, and here we are, rhubarb liqueur. Very good, super good for summer. Not really a fall thing, but what are you gonna do? These are all the blackberries that I had, so I can't re-record, but just believe me, there's blackberries in there. There's blackberries in there with the rhubarb liqueur. About an ounce and a half of the rhubarb liqueur if you decide to recreate this recipe. Then I'm going to, for the creamy element, I'm gonna go for kind of like a sour. It won't be sour because it doesn't have the citrus of a sour, but I'm going for a sour kind of vibe, so I'm gonna get an egg white here that I'm gonna throw into the shaker. Half an ounce Hendrick's gin, incredible gin, by the way. Not a sponsor. Don't have a sponsor, you should assume that. A little ice. You should dry shake it, but given that we don't have a ton in there, it's just gonna kind of go everywhere. Got a nice coupe glass here. So we're just gonna strain that out. Some of the berries probably gonna go with it, and that's fine. I think it'll be part of the texture of the drink. And thus, our beautiful The Stuff drink is born. And we are back in the Halloween Horror Club, as it was always meant to be, with a new drink. I'm gonna try it literally for the first time, so we're gonna see how this goes. Oh mama. It's creamier than I was expecting it to be. I think I would throw a little vanilla. I would toss a little vanilla in there. And then really what I should have done is just taken some like oat milk and whipped that, but I didn't. That's a good drink. That's a solid drink. I'm not upset about that at all. All right, so The Stuff was directed by Larry Cohen. This is the guy who made one of my all-time favorite terrible movies, Cue the Winged Serpent, among several other films that you may or may not know. So I would highly recommend checking out his work because I think it's really interesting. Specifically, this is a unique kind of placement in his career. Cue the Winged Serpent, if you haven't seen it, is a very low budget monster movie, kaiju movie set in New York about Quetzalcoatl, this ancient Aztec god being brought back to life by this weird cult. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun. I may or may not have reviewed it for the channel. I honestly don't remember. But Larry Cohen is a very interesting director. He is a guy who can just get it done. He doesn't necessarily care about like crafting the perfect shot necessarily. All of his films feel really guerrilla. They're very quick and short-winded, and a lot of the time I think that works very much in his favor because we are really here in his movies for oozy goozy effects, monsters, creatures, cool practical kind of creations, and fun spooky vibes. And I think he is incredible at crafting all of those things, where Cue the Winged Serpent is a much more summery. It's a very summery movie in the sense that it feels hot, it feels wet, it feels like Predator 2 in that way. Whereas The Stuff, I think, is a very different kind of summery movie. It's poppy, it's fun, it's lighter, it feels sweet and overindulgent in some ways that I think is really fun, that we're gonna dive into, starting with the good. Our potentially main character, there's probably 3 protagonists in the film, played by Michael Moriarty, is Mo Rutherford, who is a guy who can get shit done. Like that is kind of what his character archetype is. He's the guy who is just always looking for more money. He's looking to, he will double cross you at any moment. It doesn't really matter. He's kind of a sleazebag. He is fully sleazing around in a suit and cowboy boots, which is really a call and most of the time not effective for his look. He plays this character in such a disgusting, gross way, but also kind of endearing. He's doing a little accent. He has fun catchphrases that he does. Mo Rutherford is a horrible man, and I think he doesn't really learn very much throughout the movie. He makes the right calls some of the time because he's trying to make the right calls some of the time. But man, the character arc for this movie is terrible guy to mostly bad guy. Like he's not a redeemable character, and I don't think he was ever intended to be. Again, the purpose of these movies is not to give you really strong, beautiful character arcs that are poignant and impressive. The purpose of this movie is to show you a goo eating a man from the inside out, and we get that. Again, we'll get to that. Our other two main characters are Andrea Markovici, I believe, played by Nicole Kendall. She's like a marketing agent who was working on the stuff, realizes that it's bad, and has to figure out how to unmarket the stuff. And then a child, Jason, played by Scott Bloom, which feels like kind of an out-of-pocket decision. It feels like a really random choice. The setup of this movie, I think, is genuinely brilliant. They have two different stories going on. One, Mo Rutherford, who is figuring out that the stuff is evil and trying to figure out from a large corporate scale what's going on. And then the other story is Jason, as his family is being taken over because they're addicted to the stuff, and it's starting to take over their minds. He finds it gross. He sees it moving in the nighttime, and he's like, I'm of course not gonna eat that, because he's a reasonable child. The point of the film, if you haven't seen it, is that the stuff is growing out of the earth. They don't totally know where it came from. It might be aliens. There's some theories on that, and it might just be a natural occurrence, but either way, it tastes delicious and everybody wants it and they can't get enough of it. So obviously, a company packages and sells it as a food for profit, and that is the point of it. And obviously it's one of those, like, company does a thing goes wrong, how do we deal with it as a society? There's other layers to it, treating it like an addiction, treating it like drugs. There's a lot of that, and we'll get to some of that as the movie goes on. But the core concept of the film is this capitalist horror that I think is really, really fun. There are so many wonderful shots of billboards advertising this stuff. There's stuff commercials kind of interlaid throughout the film, almost making it feel like a TV movie, which is really fun. There's like a commercial break, and there's a moment where I felt like I was transported back into the 80s, the 90s, where you're just watching a movie on TV, and then all of a sudden a commercial comes on. And it was a very immersive experience because it kind of brought the stuff out into the real world, sort of. I mean, you know, I don't want to give it too much credit because it's not an art film. Like, it's not a brilliant movie, but it is a lot of fun. And having those shots of the billboards, having those shots randomly of like a poster for the stuff, or somebody's wearing the stuff t-shirt, or having those shots where a child is running through the grocery store, just kicking down displays worth of the stuff because he's found out, or he at least believes, that it's evil and turning his family into zombies. I think a lot of that plays really well. And the way that it's shot and the way that it is lit feels a lot like a commercial, a thing that The Substance would later on do. I think to an nth degree. I think it bumped that up to about 11. But that is something that I find so interesting about the stuff. Larry Cohen shoots this movie in bright, poppy colors. It doesn't feel creepy necessarily, but it is creepy because it's these horrific things happening in either broad daylight or very bright nighttime. So it's a lot of fun. The colors of the stuff are this pink, purple, brown, kind of like that's their marketing sort of thing, which, by the way, horrible color scheme. Brown doesn't fit with those, but that's not the point. That's just a side graphic designer's opinion. Don't put brown with pink and purple, it's gross. But the stuff is marketed as this family-friendly, all-inclusive, no added sugars, no added flavors, natural resource, delicious, good superfood kind of thing. And I think the way that this plays with capitalism in horror, and the way that you see the functionings, the inner workings of advertising and the company and the profit margin and what they're willing to do to maintain that profit margin, even seeing within their own company that this is clearly not a good thing and not working, is so much fun. This is a surprisingly biting satire of capitalism, especially for when it came out. It's aged like a fine wine. It feels more topical today than it probably literally ever has. But like I said, having those two stories, having the large, grand scale corporate horror and also small town family local horror is very fun. It keeps you engaged for the first half of the movie. And when those stories merge together and they meet each other and they get intertwined, it's all the more interesting because you care about these characters and you're interested to see how this is gonna shake out. And I think there is something to be said for the way that this movie is laid out is kind of strange. The pacing is a little weird in it, but I think it's for the better. It works very well. It's a very fun movie. I had seen it once before. I have the Arrow video release, which, by the way, as a side note, gorgeous. There's an entire documentary on the special features. This is what Arrow is doing for schlocky 80s horror movies is what Criterion is doing for douchebag film bros. I love everything they're putting out. It makes me so happy that they are getting the opportunities to release these things. Arrow Video, thank you for what you do. If you guys haven't bought an Arrow release, and this is not sponsored, by the way, I would love it if it was, just to be clear, but it's not sponsored. But if you guys haven't bought an Arrow release, it is well worth your time. If there's a movie that you already like on there, you will get something out of it. And if there's a movie that you're interested in, this is kind of the way to get it because they put out a hell of a disc. Not really the point of this video, just an interesting truth to acknowledge. But I had seen this film before when I originally bought the Blu-ray, and I remember liking it. I remember thinking it was pretty fun, a little cheesy, a little schlocky, whatever. My taste hadn't really acclimated to that kind of vibe. I wasn't super into the 80s horror movies because they weren't real. They didn't feel like real horror movies to me for whatever pretentious bullshit reason. But I specifically remember the pacing feeling very strange because I was so invested in what they were doing with the family getting taken over and the idea of the stuff being out in the world that when it decides to shift into being basically Halloween, the season of the witch, Halloween 3, I think I wasn't ready for that. I didn't like that they were shifting focus away from the localized like character drama horror and more into the corporate grand scale horror of what's actually happening. That wasn't something I was really on board with. Watching it again though, man, I love that segment. It might be my favorite section of the movie, just really getting to dive into the back end of creating the stuff and how they operate, the way that they're working. From a story perspective, seeing that undeniably what they're doing is bad and wrong and sucking the soul out of everyone working there literally is so much fun because it's this very biting satire, something that like this could be made today about Jeff Bezos and everybody would be like, okay, yeah, it's a little on the nose. But the fact that this was made way back when and we're still dealing with those same problems is, albeit very frustrating, but makes this movie significantly more interesting. I mentioned it before and I will say it again, the practical effects in this movie are so much fun. There's a lot of it that you're like, you can kind of piece together and figure out how they did, but a majority of the effects in this movie really feel like a magic trick. They are so impressive. Some of them, I have to assume, was like a rotating room of some sort where people were strapped down to the top or something like that. There's a specific effect where a guy gets like blasted into a wall by the stuff when they try to kill Mo Rutherford and the marketing agent, who I can never pronounce her name correctly. They're trying to kill them in the hotel and they have sent a hitman, and when that doesn't work, the stuff accidentally kills the guy that they sent to kill the people. Incredible. Just a hell of an effect, and they light it on fire. I really don't know how they did a lot of this. I assume a portion of this was miniatures, a portion of this was just spraying people down with a lot of foam. I really don't know. I'm sure gravity was at play, but it's so impressive to me that they can make this stuff feel alive and feel real because it is practical effects, and this is just a love letter to practical effects. It really is. If you were going to remake this movie, I legitimately believe that they would do it all CG and it'd be fine, right? Like it would look fine, but you would have to rely a little bit more on the story and the characters and the acting, whereas this can rest itself a little bit on the practical effects, which work really, really well. There's a couple of incredible kills in this. One of them I'll get to, which is my favorite kill, but others are really good. There's one, Mo Rutherford gets attacked at one point and his face gets covered in the stuff, and it's kind of stressful because it looks like he's choking on the stuff. It feels real and tangible because it's shot in camera. I love practical effects so much, and I love a movie that literally has to, like they had no other option than to do practical effects. this makes such good use of them, and I think it's so much fun. It's fun to see this, which came a couple of movies after Q the Winged Serpent, where Q, the effects are not convincing in that. They're very fun, but they're not convincing. This, it feels like, I don't know if it was budget or just technique or just a superior, like gained a lot of ground in terms of what we were able to do. I don't know totally what it was, but this feels like Q was the proof of concept for what this could be in terms of just crafting this world of practical effects. There's also a character, speaking of things that are a little too topical, Colonel Malcolm Gromit, I think? Paul Sorvino. I think it's played by Paul Sorvino, I think is who that is. I might be wrong about that. But there's a colonel in the army who is maybe the most 2025 ass guy you've ever seen in your life. It is insane how much this guy would support a specific current US president. If Rutherford is the sleazebag who's just kind of a douche, but you love him for that, this colonel is the complete opposite side of the coin. He is just a real piece of shit, and you hate him, and he's the worst, but he is played in a way that is very fun. It's over the top. It's clearly a joke. But yeah, he's just an awful man. And I think that's a lot of fun in a movie like this that is clearly supposed to be satirical. It's trying to take a bite at the apple on some of these things. And I think it does a very good job of being a very anti-consumerism, anti-military. It is so funny that the military does so little in this movie. They show up for so much and they accomplish so little, because by the time they get in, the stuff is already left, the people are already dead, and they just want to shoot some shit. And I think it's very funny. It's a very funny representation. Not because I'm anti-military, just to be clear, but I do think it is like, this isn't anti-military personnel. It's anti-concept of how we use our military. It's very opposed to the way that we process our military and the way that we have sort of commoditized and consumerized our own military. I think it plays very well. It's a very funny satire, and also this character is horrible to watch. He says some of the worst things you could possibly imagine, but he is very, very funny in that way. There's also a character who I have not mentioned yet, out of choice, because I think it's so funny that he comes probably 3/4 of the way through the movie. His name is Chocolate Chip Charlie. They mentioned him before. He's the head of a chocolate chip cookie empire. And his introduction, Mo Rutherford is doing some investigating in a small town. He goes to a car that he has seen kind of following him, or he's like unsure about. And Chocolate Chip Charlie does a flying kick across the car to try to take him down, and does some of the greatest faux karate that we've seen on film. It is hilarious. It's also very funny because he does all of this, and then Mo Rutherford just beats the holy hell out of him. Like he is not a successful man in any metric outside of his cookie empire. And I think his character is very, very fun. He is played really well. I should know who plays him. Hang on. He is played incredibly well by Garrett Morris, who is so funny in this. He's so much fun. He brings such an energy to the movie where it was just starting to lose steam. He shows up and we're off to the races again. I'm not going to tell you until the end of the video, but he has my favorite moment of the movie that we will definitely get to. But he guides us into the third act. I don't think it's my favorite section of the movie, but it is a very, very entertaining section of the movie. The third act takes place in a radio station where they are trying to get the word out to people that the stuff is bad. Don't eat it. It'll get you. It'll get you dead. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it right now. Maybe I'll pepper this through the video as they go. My favorite moment of the movie, my favorite kill of the movie is Chocolate Chip Charlie, because he's sort of just hanging out. He's a part of the crew now. He's gonna talk about it, and they're like gonna go on the radio. One of the characters asks him like, "Hey, what's your plan? Like, do you need to practice?" And he's like, "No, I know what it feels like to eat you out from the inside." And he's like, and they're like, what could you possibly mean by that? And he's like, "I know what it feels like." And then his head sort of like bursts up and open, and the stuff starts coming out of him, and it's been inside him the whole time. And it's a great practical effect. You can Google pictures of it. It's phenomenal. It looks really, really solid. And also, it's just a really horrifying image that I think plays really well. It's this culmination of everything that we've been fearing. And we've seen the aftermath of it before, but we've never seen it just actively happen on camera. And it's sad to see Chocolate Chip Charlie go, because he's such a funny guy. He's such a funny character. But the way that he goes out is legendary. It's one of my favorite cinema kills of all time now. And I think it really leads us into this third act where they have to fight the stuff in this radio station. And it's just a good location. It's a fun setup. It's a cool action sequence, if not the greatest one. And then we end the movie on this note of like, they get the word out and there's a news report saying like, hey, it killed hundreds of people, I think they say, maybe thousands, I can't remember, but it killed a lot of people, but we're okay. We've stopped eating the stuff and everything's gonna be all right. And there's this moment where you're like, oh, that seems a little bit, I don't know, a little too good, like too fine an ending, even though people did die. Is that all this was? And then there are two, what feel like codas, a little epilogue to the movie. One, Mo Rutherford tracks down the people who were running the stuff. They are the owners of the stuff. And he confronts them and says, look at what you've done. And they are like, you think you've won? You haven't won anything. We're going to be releasing The Taste coming soon. Talking about just the way that they handle the irony of how the business works is so on point and so extremely good. That is such a current day pivot to do for a company. And then Mo makes them all eat the stuff because he's gonna kill them to death. And so then they all eat the stuff and they get you get this sort of retribution style ending. And then the movie officially ends with this shot of people on the street selling on like an underground market, selling the stuff. And you see that there's this underlying power vacuum addiction left over. And I think while that doesn't play perfectly in terms of pacing, in terms of just the way that it operates, I really, really love the note that this movie ends on because it is so pessimistic. The movie ends on a high, and then it gradually lowers to make you be like, oh, this might not be good. And then it lowers even further to be like, oh no, this is definitely extremely bad. I think it really seals the point of the film in. It nails down the idea of consumerism being more important than humanity to a lot of the companies, and I think that's a really powerful message, especially again now. And I don't want to make this about that. More importantly than the message, that is very poignant and very solid. This is just a really, really extremely fun movie. Almost all of it plays, but there are a few things that don't work, and I do want to dive into those. Most notably, some of the acting is pretty rough. Thankfully, the main four, if you count Chocolate Chip Charlie, all play very well. They are all very solid in their performances, and I think they work really well. But a lot of the side characters really take away from the realism of the movie. They take away from they break your sense of disbelief very quickly because a lot of them just aren't particularly good actors or aren't reading the lines particularly well, whichever way you want to look at it. So that is a bummer. It is also, I've said it before and I'll say it again, kind of a part of the charm of these 70s, 80s, 90s horror movies. They're a little cheesy, and this is a little cheesy, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not. And so it's not a huge downside, but it is kind of one of those things that if you're looking at things that don't really work about the movie, a lot of the side performances are pretty high on that list, I would say. There's also, like I mentioned before, some very weird pacing in the film that doesn't really work, but that's not that big a deal. I'm not too particularly worried about that. But the other more important thing, the thing that I find very interesting, Larry Cohen's movies are odd. They have this sense of dissociation from the film that I think lends itself to going crazier places, doing some crazier things, and you just being along for the ride because you're not so intrinsically linked to these characters that you really care about what happens to them. But it also kind of holds you at arm's length. All of these movies feel a little bit more, at least the ones that I've seen, feel a little bit more about telling a story than showing you something or inviting you into it. It just feels like it's trying to get it out. And that can be really fun, but I think you lose a sense of character in that. So there's things that just don't quite play right. Like the scene I mentioned before, where Jason is running around the grocery store, knocking down cans of the stuff, taking down like big cardboard cutouts and freaking out that the stuff is like available to everybody. It is a spectacular scene, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense because leading up to that, he has seen the stuff move at like 4 a.m, so he very likely could have been sleepwalking. And that's the only scary thing that he's seen. We haven't gotten the vibe that anything is off about his family or that anything is wrong with the stuff, because when he looks back at it, it's back in the can and everything's fine. We haven't had a moment where anything bad has happened, where I feel like if you were going to invite us into the story a little bit more, we would need a scene where he sees someone acting strange, someone acting a little over defensive about the stuff or a little bit overindulgent about it. So far, we haven't seen anything of that note. And I see that the movie has to kind of ramp up to the dinner scene where they're all sitting around with literally just a big bowl of the stuff sitting around the table, which is a great scene. And you do have to ramp up to that. But I think we needed a little bit more to kind of get ourselves into the feeling that something might be wrong. The story, a lot of the time, and a lot of his movies do this, the characters make decisions because the story has to have them make those decisions and has to have them in a certain place by a certain time. But I don't really buy it for any particular reason. I have no reason to believe that he would be uniquely worried about this outside of just that he's seen it do some creepy stuff. Now, is that a fundamental issue with the movie? Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't think it's that big a deal because I think the point of the movie still stands and I think a lot of it still plays, but you do kind of have to separate yourself from that feeling just a little bit throughout the film. All things considered, Larry Cohen's The Stuff is and should be an all-time classic B movie. It is schlocky in just the right ways. It's creative. It's biting, it's fun, it's exciting. It doesn't sit too long in any of the moments. There's nothing from it outside of a couple of lines from that Colonel, which are already supposed to be distasteful. There's nothing in it that feels like, oh man, I guess that's a movie of the times. Like, it feels like it's just a very good, very recommendable movie that I would say, by the way, not too scary to show to people. Maybe not children, but not too scary if you're like, just wanting to show somebody a fun, spooky horror movie. I think this is a great example of one of those that just about anybody could at least passably enjoy it, if not really like it, even if they're not super into horror. So that's my thoughts on Larry Cohen's The Stuff. I would actually love to know, have you seen The Stuff? Did you watch it for this video? Do you already love it? Have you seen the film? What are your thoughts on The Stuff? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Did you also have that weird separation from character that I did, or am I just missing something? I would really love to know what your thoughts are on The Stuff. And otherwise, I will see you guys next week for a movie that came out, I believe, this year, starring Pedro Pascal. That's right. I'm trying to shake it up a little bit. I'm trying to get different genres and different subgenres, different feelings. I don't want to just do schlocky 70s, 80s movies. So we are going to be doing Freaky Tales, which I know is on HBO. It is also on Blu-ray, I believe. So go watch Freaky Tales, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you like this series, if you like these videos, hit the like button, please. Hit the subscribe, and just, let me know in the comments below what you want me to review next, or do none of those things because I really am not your dad. Just a quick note that I want to give, just on a personal level. I'm putting a lot of work into these videos, and it really means a lot to me that you guys are here. I know that sounds really stupid because I'm reviewing this stuff. Like, how deep can this be? But genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, it actually really does mean a lot that you guys watch these videos, that you care about this, that you want to engage with this. I'm not like asking you for anything literally at all. I just thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this and giving me a chunk of the time that we have on this earth. That's pretty cool, and I'm pretty honored. So God bless you guys for being here. I love you all. Sorry, that's a super weird way to end this video.